Hello and welcome to The Real Review. I'm Huon Hooke and we're talking to Paul Lindner, the Chief Winemaker of Langmeil. Langmeil being one of our top wineries of 2021 for The Real Review. G'day, Paul.
G'day, Huon. Nice to see you.
You too. I believe you've just notched up 21 vintages at Langmeil this year.
It feels like more, but yeah, that sounds about right.
21's a long time, but it's very small compared to the age of some of your vines, the 1843 Freedom Vineyard being the oldest, I think.
Yep, that's our oldest vineyard on the winery property, and we've got a couple other vineyards around that planted in the 19th century as well that we use for different wines also.
Yep, and how old can a grapevine live? Because those vines must be about 180 years old by now.
Well, it's hard to know, really, I guess. They're looked after impeccably, and I guess it's a continual reworking as well. So you kind of, putting fresh wood on the wire each year and all that sort of thing. So who knows how long they'll go for, but they're looking pretty healthy.
Well, I'm sure they've never been looked after better in their lives than they are now, because their juice is worth a lot of money now.
Yeah, exactly.
If there's one thing that explains the quality of your wines, what would that be?
It's probably more than one thing, but I guess, over the years, just experience with the different vineyards. I guess I spend a lot of time out, sampling the grapes myself, tasting. And I think I've just got a comfortable balance between not being too ripe, not being underripe, just a happy medium. And I guess I go more on the flavour profile of things rather than numbers and that sort of style of winemaking, I guess. After 20 odd years, the growers, the vineyards pretty well, what quality they can produce. So you're aiming for that stylistic ripeness, depending on whichever wine, the vineyards ends up in.
So if there's one benchmark wine that you continually come back to in your mind's eye when you're thinking about great wines, what would that be?
Well, I guess growing up in the Barossa, obviously, a lot of winemakers, and my parents were actually shareholders of Rockford for quite a long time. And I guess when you look at the simplicity of how the Rockford wines are made, basket press, I guess that's probably, a good standout wine for me. I guess it's a little bit more old school, but certainly the simplicity, without complicating things, without adding tannins and enzymes and all that, sort of keeping things fairly natural in that regard. I find that it's a good true representation of the Barossa style, really. So the basket press is probably the one that I think of the most in that regard, I guess, Huon.
Paul, the site where the winery is located down there beside the Para River is a very historic site, isn't it? I've been there, I've seen the marvellous old mud buildings, the blacksmith's forge and so on. Tell us a bit about the Langmeil village and its history.
Yeah, well, it was one of the earliest, obviously, settlements in the Barossa. I think Bethany was a little bit earlier than Tanunda. It was sort of established around 1840, 1841. And the winery site was actually the Arik property, which was much bigger than what it is now. But he was the blacksmith, and he moved to this part of the Tanunda. The main street was basically Langmeil Road along the river. So there's a lot of old little farmlets and ironstone buildings along the river. And the centre of town is now the winery. So we had the blacksmith and the butcher, the cobbler's store and all that sort of thing set up for the travellers heading to Kapunda and Burra for all the mining that was going on there in the 1840s. And then eventually, funnily enough, someone built a pub off of the main street. And then eventually the whole town moved to the different street where the pub was.
Funny how things happen
Lutherans,
like that, isn't it?
don't mind a tipple or two.
So the final question, Paul, is of all the wines that you make, and you make a lot of wines, and it seems there are more SKUs coming on every year, more labels every year, which is your first personal favourite?
I was trying to work this one out. It's a bit hard. Like my brother said, it's hard to choose between your children. But obviously the freedom is, it's right up there because it's such a special old vineyard. It's the single vineyard wines. Obviously, you're in the laps of the gods on how the quality and the quantity and all that sort of thing. So I guess it takes a little bit of extra effort to try to make that wine consistent. But our Eden Valley vineyards they're looking really good at the moment, and our old blocks up there, which we make the pure Eden from, it's just that little bit more elegant, I guess. So that's a fave as well. But and then having said that, you've got Orphanbank, which is a blend of lots of old vineyards, and so that takes a lot of effort to keep that style going.
Been great talking to you, Paul. And that's Paul Lindner from Langmeil Winery in the Barossa, one of our top wineries of the year for the Real Review 2021.
Great. Thanks for your time, Huon.